For nearly a decade, every photo you've taken on an iPhone was made possible by one company, not Apple. Sony. Sony has been the sole supplier of camera sensors inside every single iPhone for years, quietly powering Apple's entire shot-on iPhone marketing empire from behind the scenes. But according to multiple credible leaks and analyst reports, that era is over. The iPhone 18 may be the first iPhone in history to carry a camera sensor made by Samsung. Yes, Samsung, Apple's fiercest rival on the store shelf. And apparently, their newest hardware partner under the hood. Let's break down exactly what's happening and what it means for your photos. To understand why this is such a big deal, you need to appreciate just how dominant Sony has been inside the iPhone. Sony currently controls about 45% of the global image sensor market. They've been Apple's exclusive camera sensor supplier for years, a single-source relationship that is almost unheard of for a component this critical. Every time Apple touted better low-light performance, improved detail, richer color, Sony's sensor was doing most of that heavy lifting. And Apple was fine with that, because Sony is genuinely great at this. Their Exmor RS sensors are some of the best in the business. So what changed? Two things: better technology and politics. The first major signal came from Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, one of the most reliable names in iPhone leaks. Kuo reported that Samsung is expected to begin shipping 48-megapixel ultra-wide CMOS image sensors to Apple for iPhones as early as 2026. That's a massive jump. The current ultra-wide camera on recent iPhones sits at just 12 megapixels. We're talking a 4 times increase in resolution on that lens alone. Then, a separate leaker known as Juken Los Reeve, who has a solid track record, revealed something even more significant. Samsung isn't just working on a basic sensor. They're developing an advanced 3-layer stacked image sensor, specifically designed for Apple. And then came the report from respected Korean outlet The Elec, which claimed Apple is preparing to use Samsung's ISO-cell sensors across the entire iPhone 18 lineup, including the Pro and Pro Max models. This isn't one analyst speculating. Multiple independent sources are pointing in the same direction. Sony's exclusive hold on the iPhone is ending. Let's talk about what Samsung is actually building, because this is where it gets genuinely impressive. The sensor is described as a PDTR logic configuration, which means it has 3 stacked layers of circuitry built directly onto the sensor itself. Think of it like this. Traditional sensors are like a single-story house. All the processing happens on one level, and everything has to wait in line. A 3-layer stacked sensor is like a 3-story smart building. The photodiodes that capture light are on one floor. The transistors are on another. The logic and processing chip is on the third. They all work simultaneously. The result? Faster readout speeds, less motion blur, reduced noise in dark environments, better dynamic range. According to the leaker, this sensor is considered more advanced than Sony's existing Exmor RS, which means Samsung isn't just entering the iPhone supply chain, they're entering it with a potentially superior product. And here's the wildest part. Samsung is making a rival to the sensor inside the phone that competes directly with their own Galaxy lineup. The smartphone industry is weird. There's a second reason this is happening beyond just technology, and it's very 2026. Tariffs. Sony manufactures iPhone sensors in Japan. With current US trade policy potentially hammering foreign-made chips with hefty tariffs, Apple has a very practical reason to want a domestic option. Samsung has one. Samsung has committed to a $19 billion expansion of its semiconductor operations in Austin, Texas, with new production lines expected to come online as early as March 2026. That timeline lines up almost perfectly with an iPhone 18 fall launch window. So what we're seeing isn't just Apple diversifying its supply chain for better tech. It's Apple aligning its hardware strategy with US manufacturing commitments, something Tim Cook has been very publicly vocal about, including a $500 billion US investment pledge Apple made earlier this year. Samsung building iPhone camera sensors in Texas is a win for Apple politically, logistically, and technically. Okay. So what does all of this actually mean when you pull out your iPhone 18 and open the camera app? First, that ultrawide lens is about to become genuinely good. For years, the ultrawide has been the weakest camera in Apple's lineup. Fine for landscapes, but noticeably softer and noisier than the main lens. At 12 megapixels, it was basically playing catch-up. A 48 megapixel Samsung sensor with a larger 1 over 2.6 inch size changes that story. Expect sharper edges in architectural shots, more usable detail when you crop, and significantly less grain when you go wide in dim lighting. Second, if Samsung's 3-layer sensor does make it onto the main camera, not just the ultrawide, you're looking at improvements in action shots. Faster readout means less rolling shutter on fast-moving subjects. Night mode, better noise handling without losing detail. Video, cleaner 4K footage with less compression artifacting. And on top of all this, iPhone 18 Pro is also rumored to get variable aperture on the main camera, a first for iPhone, giving you real physical control over depth of field and low light exposure. In short, the iPhone 18 could deliver the biggest camera leap in several generations, and Samsung is a big reason why. Now for the real question. Should you care who makes the sensor? The honest answer is no, and yes. No, because Apple doesn't build its own sensors, and never has. Sony, Samsung, it doesn't matter to your photos. What matters is how Apple's computational photography software interprets the data coming off that sensor. And Apple's image processing is still best in class. But yes, because competition changes everything. For years, Sony had no real competitor for the iPhone sensor contract. That's a situation no supplier should ever be in. The moment Samsung entered the race, not just with a cheaper option, but with a potentially better option, Sony had to respond. That competition shows up in your photos. Better sensors, faster timelines, more aggressive specs. That's what happens when two of the biggest names in consumer electronics stop taking each other for granted. And for users, that's a very good thing. Here's the bottom line. Apple is reportedly putting Samsung camera sensors inside the iPhone 18, ending Sony's long-running monopoly and diversifying one of its most critical supply chains. The ultrawide is jumping from 12 to 48 megapixels. A new 3-layer stacked sensor design could push performance beyond what Sony currently offers. And it's being manufactured right here in the US, at Samsung's Texas facility. This isn't a small change. For camera enthusiasts and everyday iPhone users alike, this could be the most meaningful camera upgrade in years. If this rumor holds, and given how many credible sources are backing it, I think it will, the iPhone 18 is shaping up to be a serious camera phone. Is Samsung inside an iPhone a strange idea? Absolutely. Does it make the photos better? Probably. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. If you found this video helpful, smash that subscribe button. We drop videos like this every week, covering everything in smartphones, EVs, and AI tech. I'll see you in the next one.